Cindy Speaker, and I'm talking today with Dave Miller of Michael J. O'Connor and Associates, and we're going to talk about a topic that's kind of going to make you feel like you're in the Jetsons. It's autonomous cars. So, Dave, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Cindy. Always a pleasure.
Yep. Well, listen, why don't we start off, and why don't you explain to us what a fully autonomous vehicle is?
Sure, and I'll do my best here. I'm an attorney, not an engineer, but there is some guidance out there. Thankfully, the Society of Automotive Engineers have put out, and they created a sort of a leveling system for autonomous vehicles, which goes from 0 to 5. 0, 1, and 2 being more human driver interactive as the vehicles that we're used to driving these days, and then SAE levels 3 through 5 being more automated driver system type vehicles, with 5 being the fully automated vehicle. There's some differences. Obviously, level 3 are the type of vehicles that we are starting to see where there are some driver assist mechanisms in play. Level 4 is a system where the vehicle could set out basically an intervene warning to the human operator, and then the human driver would step in and take over. And then 5 is the highest level, is where the vehicle would actually have its own backup and intervene for itself, essentially, in a situation where something doesn't go the way it's supposed to.
That's amazing.
I think that's more the Jetsons level, the level 5. Yeah. From everything I've read, it looks like the 3 and the 4 are really where the I guess on the horizon of a vehicle coming out. That's the type of vehicle we can expect. And then obviously the end goal is the level 5.
Okay, well, talk about that. The experiment, I believe there was an Uber experiment in Pittsburgh related to autonomous vehicles. Which level would that have been at?
So the level, my understanding of that experiment is those are level 4 vehicles, because the videos that I've seen, that they have an operator sitting in the driver's seat. And I think that's just because they're in the testing phase, where they didn't want to send these vehicles out into the streets of Pittsburgh and not have a human being able to step in if need be.
Right.
Yeah, and that experiment's still going on. They've had some hiccups. I think mainly more of contractual agreement type hiccups versus technology. Although I'm sure they're ironing out their issues on technology as well. It's still in the testing phase, but that's sort of the city of Pittsburgh is basically offered up their city. They're the maiden test track. That's what the terminology is. And then Carnegie Mellon University is partnering with Uber to develop this technology. So it's exciting times, obviously, and it's great to we have that in Pennsylvania. But there's lots of issues. And just I mentioned on those contractual issues, and it's sort of governmental issues. One is, the city is not happy that Uber didn't develop the number of jobs they were expecting. Uber didn't back up the city on a $50 million grant proposal to enhance their transportation systems. And these are the types of issues we're talking about. We're not talking about vehicle failure issues or Uber vehicles being involved in too many wrecks or anything like that.
Okay. But, yeah. Well, let me just try and wrap my head around this. So you're talking about level 3, 4, and 5, but here are some of the things we hear, and I'm wondering how these fit in. So what I've heard is that even in intersections and things like that, an autonomous vehicle is able to anticipate even unusual circumstances and compensate for that. Is that up around level 5 or?
That is essentially anything. Let me just take a look at my chart here. Yeah. But that's called monitoring of the driving environment, is what you just explained that. And a level 3, 4, or 5, the system, the vehicle itself does that. 0 through 2, that's the human driver that's responsible for that. So yes, once you get into that higher level, 3, 4, or 5, the automated driving system, it's the vehicle itself that is sensing its surroundings and reacting. Okay,
very interesting.
Yeah.
What about in Pennsylvania? Is there any specific legislation relative to this topic?
There is. There is a Senate bill that has made its way. It's been introduced. It's made its way to the Transportation Committee back in February, where as far as I can tell, that's where it stayed, and there hasn't been any action on it, or any meaningful action on it. But this is basically setting up a parameter for testing.
Okay.
This is not the final all-inclusive statute that we've seen in some other states. This is essentially saying we want to be the state where these companies will come in, and we're going to make it sort of a fair playing ground, have some rules laid out so they can step in and do their testing.
Okay.
Which I think they're looking, obviously, the Uber experiment is driving a lot of this. The prime sponsor is a senator from Allegheny County. It makes sense that he wants this experiment to expand throughout the state.
Yeah.
So, I don't think the fact that there hasn't been much movement on it, I guess, is a statement of where that Uber test is in Pittsburgh. Yeah. If they were more advanced, I think this bill would be moving a little quicker. But I would think that these two things will go hand in hand. Once Uber sends out the word that they're ready to expand their experiment statewide, I think this bill will move a little quicker.
Yeah.
And it's not talking about it's setting up some standards for they cite to these SAE standards, and they set up different responsibilities based on the level of automation with the vehicle that they're testing. They talk about, basic stuff that these vehicles have to be registered according to the regular laws, things like that. And also setting up a safety advisory council made up of many interested parties throughout the Commonwealth, so that this isn't something that we're just handing over and say, run with it in our Commonwealth. It's going to be something that's going to be looked at and talked about until it's perfected, if that's even possible.
Yeah. Well, I imagine there's going to be, it's going to be tough to get adoption of this. I don't know if you saw this, Dave, but last week there was maybe 2 weeks ago on one of the network morning shows, and it talked about that with autonomous vehicles, that eye movement is going to be a factor. And yet we see all these pictures of people driving in autonomous cars reading a book. And I thought, my gosh, if this is going to be related to eye movement, what is the point? So there's so much confusion about this whole topic.
I think you're right. And I think that is going to be one of the big issues, is when an individual is going in, when these vehicles are eventually ready for sale and on the marketplace. There's a big difference between going in and buying a level 2 vehicle and a level 5 vehicle.
Yeah. And
we're putting that up to the dealerships and the purchaser to understand exactly what this vehicle can do and how to switch from mode to mode. That's going to create a lot of issues. I mean, there's going to be, it reminds me of that crazy story of the gentleman that bought the RV and put it in cruise control and went to the back to take a nap because he thought the car was going to drive itself. That's the kind of thing I think we're going to see happen, because we're relying on, individuals in our community to understand this complex technology.
Yeah.
And, we got some of the smartest engineers at Carnegie Mellon working on this stuff and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
To hand the keys over to someone that, has been used to driving a stick shift their whole life.
Right.
It's a big jump.
Yeah,
it sure is. A learning curve here for everyone. Yeah. So I think we're kind of far off from getting to those level 5 vehicles being on the road.
It seems like it.
I think we're generations. That's my guess, is I think we're at least another generation away from that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the dangers. And one of the things, I love the way Michael J. O'Connor and Associates stays on top of trends and issues like this, which are very much related to what you do every day. And that deals with injured and disabled people, often in car accidents. What are some of the dangers that are anticipated? Because I would think one of the things that comes to mind for me is, if I'm in an autonomous vehicle, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, I don't think I would be an early adopter. But suppose there's an accident because the car decided to steer itself another way. Who's liable? My insurance company? The manufacturer? Talk a little bit about dangers and topics like that.
Well, these are all great questions, and I think they're going to be unanswered for a while. But I think that is everyone's big concern, is system failure, system issues while these things are being operated. And if you're essentially handing over complete control of the vehicle, which is what a level 5 automated vehicle is supposed to be able to handle.
Right.
Think about, are, I can't sometimes at home get my computer, my laptop to communicate with my printer all the time. And
Right.
then, we're out there, relying on this technology to keep us safe. So
Yeah.
certainly, I think the manufacturer will have some liability in those kind of
Yeah.
circumstances. If there was a human element to why that happened,
Yeah.
uh, certainly that liability is going to come into play. I think we're going to see a change in our insurance policies. If you're purchasing an automated vehicle, I think your insurance policy might become, another 4 to 5 times thicker to talk about all these
Yeah.
types of issues and who's
Yeah.
liable for what. So these are all
Right.
things that are yet to be played out. And,
Right.
you have obviously design issues here with, I was thinking, what if the switch to go from automated to manual is something that could be bumped by your elbow as you're reaching for your coffee.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're in the passenger seat reading a book and, oh boy, now what? So these are all
Right.
things that hopefully, and I'm sure they are being thought through, but
Yeah.
until we have enough of these vehicles on the road, and unfortunately, and I am with you, I will not be the guinea pig. I will
Right.
certainly let this new technology be tested by others first.
Yeah. It's
But
probably going to be the millennials.
that's my guess. Yes, that is
Or
my
it may
guess.
be another generation. Like you said, this could be a whole generation away. We really don't know.
I think you're right. I mean, I think millennials are happy with their Uber driver coming to get them and
Right.
take them to point to point. I think the next step may be getting into the Uber car without a driver. And that might be, 30 years away. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. So,
we'll see.
well, let me just ask you as far as future. So we're talking about, maybe a level 5 being quite a distance. But at what point do you think maybe a level 3 would be available to the general public? Are there any projections on that?
What I saw is about a 10-year outlook for
Is
that.
that right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
So it's a
we
while.
have, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have level twos, essentially right now. And
Okay.
these are the driver assist type vehicles that,
Yeah.
that can come to a stop or can
Yeah.
get you back in your lane when you're swerving on a
Yeah.
highway. Those are driver assistance systems, not
Yeah.
automated systems. But when you
Right.
combine enough of those together, then you're starting to lean into that level 3. And
Yeah.
that's really the big difference between a level 2 and a level 3 is the monitoring of the driving environment. So level 2 and
Right.
below require the driver to do that task.
Okay.
Three and above, it's the vehicle's
I
responsibility.
see. I see.
So that's the
Well,
big jump, and we're not there yet.
right. I heard something interesting in North Carolina. There is apparently legislation, and what they anticipate, and it may be a generation down the road, but their legislature has passed some kind of a bill that says that drivers can be 12 years old or older. I mean, can you imagine you're going to send your 12-year-old out in an automated vehicle, and they don't even need a driver's license. I mean, I guess this is how our great grandparents felt when they talked about some of the things that are everyday common to us today. But I just can't even imagine sending my
I,
12-year out in a vehicle
yeah, I
by
can't
himself.
either. Right, exactly.
It's crazy.
And that would be great if I can get my kids to football practice and swimming practice by sending them into my driverless vehicle. But I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. So,
Right,
but
right.
you're right. I mean, in a generation and a half or 2 generations, maybe that's commonplace.
Yeah, yeah,
That would be great if it is and it works and it's safe.
yeah.
Outstanding. We just
And it's
made
safe.
huge progress, and the
Right,
safety is the
right.
biggest thing.
Yeah,
Can we rely on this technology to take our loved ones from point to point without us being there?
yeah, yeah. Well, I think to those that are watching, one thing that we can say, I mean, this is a very interesting discussion, but I think that, uh, it's exciting, but there's lots of cautions here, lots of cautions to get too involved too early.
Absolutely. It's with anything else, any new technology, any new machine that's come out in the history of human beings. There's always that the initial failures. There's always things
Yes,
that can be improved upon, safety
right.
factors. Think about something as simple as a press in a factory. The guards weren't part of those initially, and now they are.
Yeah,
Automatic shutoff systems. Those are the types of things that um, maybe the third or fourth version of these automated cars will have that the initial
right.
ones might not, and that's just because We can't
Yeah.
predict everything, and we try to do our best. And these engineers are certainly spending a lot of time and effort on it. But it's just one of those things that experience will tell the tale, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dave, this was really good information. I appreciate it because it's very enlightening to me. I didn't realize all the different levels because when I hear about autonomous cars, I didn't. It was kind of scary, but this is a little less scary because what you're saying is, start slow, level 2, where the driver's still involved. So,
Right.
um,
It's
yeah,
interesting reading. I mean,
yeah,
my perspective is, hey, this stuff is already laid out.
yeah,
So clearly, this is the path that the automotive industry is heading.
right,
We wouldn't have statutes in place already. We wouldn't have
yeah,
SAE standards in place already if this was not the way the future was heading. So
yeah,
let's be ready for it, and
right.
let's understand what you're purchasing when you're at the dealership.
Yes, for sure. Well, Dave, if anybody has questions relative to the downside of vehicles and car accidents and things like that, how can they reach your office for information or to get some help?
They can go to our website at www.o'connorlaw.com or call us at our 800 number, which is 1-800-518-4LAW.
Excellent. Dave, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Cindy.
And to those watching, if you have questions, comments, feel free to leave them right in the comments section, and we'll make sure Dave responds to them and gets you the information you need. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye, Dave.
Take care.